When we are given a trinomial and asked to factor, the easiest way is to use the trial and error method. Now, trial and error requires you to be able to multiply and add or subtract. So at this point, we should all feel comfortable multiplying, adding, subtracting. So we should feel at ease with this trial and error method. Now, trial and error comes from what we call FOIL. So the first terms first, and then we have outer, and then inner, and then last. So our first terms are the first terms in each binomial. This is when we have two binomials that we're multiplying together. And that's how we get the first term in the trinomial. And then we have our outer. Here's our outer right here, the outer and the inner. I should come up here and do this because I did it up there. There we go, outer and inner. The outer and the inner is where the middle term of the trinomial comes from. And then the last term in each binomial. So there's two terms in a binomial. The last term is 7. Two terms in the next binomial, x and -4. That next last term is -4. That's where the last term in the trinomial comes from. So when we need to go backwards, when we're given x squared plus 3x minus 28, we're going to look to factor this into two binomials. Well, where does this first term in the trinomial come from? This first term is going to come from the first terms in the binomial. Well, how do you get x squared? Well, that's x times x. And then the last terms multiply to be -28. So that's where I come off to the side and I say, well, if we're going to multiply to be -28, we're going to have +1 and -28. That's one option. Or -1 and +28. We could have +2 and -14. We could have -2 and +14. We could have +4 and -7, or -4 and +7. Those are all of our combinations to multiply to get to -28. Well, when I place these values in here, let's just say +1 and -28, now I need to check the outer and the inner, this outer and the inner, because it has to add to be +3x. Well, that's going to give me -28x on the outer, +1x on the inner. That does not combine to be 3x. That's -27x. So we say, okay, well, we need to look for a different combination. And going through these combinations, we will get better and stronger at recognizing that we're looking at +7 and -4, or you could say -4 and +7. No matter how we look at it right there, we're going to have +7x, -4x. That gives us a +3x. So there's our outer and our inner, which combines to be our +3x. And that's our trial and error method. So let's try that. X squared minus 4x minus 5. You may recall this from Algebra 1. Now, how you did this in Algebra 1, I'm not sure when you first learned how to factor, but trial and error is at this stage in your mathematical career is the way to try and factor these trinomials. So go ahead and press pause, try and get your answer, and then come on back and I'll reveal the answer. So how we get back to x squared is x times x, and then I need to multiply to be -5. So I'm going to have either +1 and -5, -1 and +5. And those are the only two options. And I need to combine to be a -4x. So I'm going to go with +1 and -5. That outer gives me -5x, the inner gives me +1x, That checks out. So our factored answer is x plus 1 times x minus 5. So now what happens when we have something like this? A plus b quantity squared minus 4 times the quantity a plus b minus 5. Well, this should look familiar. If I were to let u equal a plus b, okay? So in place of a plus b, I make it a u. That would give me u squared minus 4 times u minus 5. Well, didn't we just factor that right there? But they weren't u's, they were x's. So if I factor that, that's going to be u plus 1 and u minus 5. But the original problem didn't have any u's in it. So now I have to go back and I have to say, well, replace now, substitute back in a plus b. Replace u with a plus b. So replace u with a plus b. So we're going to have a plus b plus 1 times the quantity a plus b minus 5. Ta-da, we factored it. So at this level in college algebra, we start factoring things that look a little bit different than they did in maybe Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. Let's see, we've got one more. Here's a trinomial that not only has a different exponent, but it also doesn't lead with a positive 1. So that leading coefficient here is a positive 2. Now this is quadratic in form. So, or in nature, I'll say in nature. Quadratic in nature. Quadratic in nature means that the first exponent is twice the second exponent. So the first exponent, that's this one, is twice the second. Here's our second exponent. When that happens, we can try to factor this into two binomials. How do we get back to 2x to the 4th? Well, we're going to have 2x squared, x squared. Now that x squared is important because that first term has to have an exponent of the middle term of the trinomial. Okay, that sounds a little weird. Okay, so this first term has to have an exponent of the middle term of the trinomial. So now we need to multiply to be positive 4, but our middle term is going to be negative. So positive 1 and positive 4, as much as I want that to work, it's not going to, because if I have all positives, I'm not going to have an outer and an inner that's negative. So we know that we're talking about two negative numbers here. Negative 1, negative 4, maybe negative 2, negative 2. Now I'm going to tell you right now why I'm not going to try negative 2, negative 2. And that's because if I were to put a 2 right here, look at this binomial. This binomial now has a common factor of 2. Okay? A common factor of 2. Does the original problem have a common factor of 2? No, 2 does not go into 9. So since the original trinomial does not have a common factor of 2, neither will its factors, neither will its binomial factors have a common factor. So I'm not even going to try the negative 2 and negative 2. I'm going to try negative 1 and negative 4. Now where will I put the 4? Can I put the 4 here? I cannot put the 4 there because then again 2 and 4 have a common factor that the original trinomial does not have. So we're going to try the negative 1 and negative 4 just like that. Now I'm going to check the outer is negative 8x squared 2x squared times negative 4 is negative 8x squared. Negative 1 times x squared is negative 1x squared. Negative 1x squared and negative 8x squared is indeed negative 9x squared. Therefore, our answer is 2x squared minus 1 times x squared minus 4. Hold the press. Hold the presses. X squared minus 4 is a difference of 2 squares. Difference of 2 squares. So I saw that difference. I'm really good with those exponent quizzes, so I know that this is a difference of 2 squares. X squared is the square of x. 4 is the square of 2. So we have to factor this just a little bit more. 2x squared minus 1 times x plus 2, x minus 2. So we always check to make sure that we have factored completely. You want to always check your binomials and make sure that they can't be further factored, most especially when you have higher degree, when you have this quadratic in nature going on.